Hey everyone, Meg here. This is not Battle Biopsis. I decided to do a little something different on this video. I had a recent comment about, on, I think it was one of my last videos. Probably like a little four-part mini thing that I want to do, and so I'm going to base this off of freshwater, because I feel that freshwater is a much easier way to get into the aquarium hobby than to jump into saltwater. Now, some people can just jump into saltwater and not have any problems and pick it up very quickly. If you're one of those people, bonus. So if you're one of my subscribers, if you've been watching my videos and you've already got a tank, you can skip this series. You don't have to watch it, but I do appreciate you even turning it on. So you can actually skip this video. This is actually for people who never had an aquarium but is interested in it but doesn't know where to start. So if you're finding this video and you're new, you're interested, maybe you were at a friend's house and they had an aquarium, or you went to a pet store and you saw their aquariums and you're like, wow, that's really amazing. Maybe you were at a local big aquarium, big public aquarium, and you just got inspired and you were like, I want an aquarium in my house. This video series is going to be for you. Now, I'm going to base this off of freshwater because, again, I do believe that freshwater is an easier step to get into than saltwater. And I've done freshwater for quite a number of years. I started back in, do I dare say, back in the mid-'80s. And I was a teenager then. My cousin had an aquarium. We were visiting them over a holiday. They had a little 10-gallon aquarium, and I was mesmerized by this thing. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I asked my mom about getting one. And like most parents getting a new pet, they're hesitant, and she was, and very rightfully so. You know, she didn't know if I was going to take care of this aquarium, but she decided to go on a whim and get me one. So she got me a 20-gallon aquarium. Very basic. So back in the 80s, aquarium filtration was very basic. You had pretty much one option, and that was an undergravel filter. Thank God we don't have to deal with those things. If you've never messed with an undergravel filter, consider yourself lucky, because those things were a death trap waiting to happen. Those were ticking time bombs. Luckily, we have very good equipment available to us now. So let's start into the first part of this, and that's going to be placement. Where are you going to place your aquarium in your home? Well, first thing you want to do is look at the layout of your house. Look at where you think an aquarium might work the best. Now, some places to avoid. You want to avoid windows for a couple reasons. First being sunlight. Sunlight is going to wreak havoc upon your tank. Between the sunlight, the water, your fish waste, and the food that you're going to put into it, you are creating the perfect storm of green tank syndrome, aka major algae bloom. Your water will be green and you will not be able to see through it. I've seen this. It is not pretty. It is very ugly. It's just, it's terrible. So keep it away from sunlight as best you can, if possible. Another place to avoid is near vents, if all possible. Air vents will help dictate your room temperature is going to help dictate your tank temperature. If you don't have a heater in your tank, your ambient room temperature is going to affect your tank. So if you have a power outage in the middle of winter and you're down for a few hours and your room temperature drops 20 degrees, your tank is going to get cold very quickly. That's going to be a bad thing. Something you're not going to be able to avoid. But if you can keep them away from vents where it's blowing direct cold air or direct hot air, being winter or summer, depending on what time of the year it is, that's going to help cut down your temperature problems. You want stability in your tank. Temperature, pH, all of that needs to be as stable as it can. Even a couple degrees, 3 or 4 degrees, can really cause some problems in your tank. So you want to stay as stable and consistent as you possibly can. Another thing to consider is obviously power supply. You need to be close to an outlet where you can plug all your equipment into. So as you look around your house, you may instantly find, oh, that's the spot, I want it right there. What you want to now consider is the size of tank that you want. Now, you're going to hear something through whatever medium you go through YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Go to a local fish store, forums, whatever. One thing that you're going to get that's definitely constant is bigger is better. What that means is the more water volume that you have in your tank system, the more stable the environment is going to be for your fish, plants, corals. Is always going to be changing. Outside influences are going to be changing that water constantly. Where my 60-gallon, it would take a lot of direct heat from a vent to heat the tank up enough to cause a problem. Since my heater does not run 24 hours a day, it would not be a problem. If it was constantly blowing, 80-degree air onto the tank, yes, it would raise the temperature of my tank. But since it comes on for 3 or 4 minutes, shuts off for maybe 10-15 minutes, it's not going to sway the temperature that much. Maybe half a degree. That's pretty minor. So my tank stability is going to be pretty good. That's if I had a vent blowing on it. So bigger is always going to be better. However, you want to, have a tank that's not too big that you're feeling overwhelmed, but just not too small where you're constantly doing stuff to it and it's just a headache. Another thing that you want to consider when you're placing your tank is the weight of the tank. This is one thing that seems to get overlooked a lot, is the tank weight. So your tank is going to have, depending on the size of the tank, is going to be pretty heavy. I want to say my tank empty with my stand is probably somewhere between 70 to 90 pounds, I'm guessing. We'll just call it an even 100, just to be on the safe side. But I would say it's probably really between 60 to 80 pounds. That's empty. For every gallon of water, that's another 8 pounds on your floor. So my tank is 60 gallons in the display. I've got roughly about 20 more gallons in the sump. My tank, just in water weight, that's not counting the tank, the stand, nothing else, just water weight, is 640 pounds approximately. 640 pounds just in water weight, sitting in one spot on my floor. It's a lot of weight. Now, factor in the tank, the stand, we'll just say it's 100 pounds. We'll just even that out to 100, make it simple. I've got roughly about 80 pounds of rock sitting in that tank. I've got 100 pounds of sand sitting in that tank. Now, let's not count the filtration, let's not count all that. We're almost at 1,000 pounds sitting on this floor. You need good floor support. If you're not sure if your floors can handle a tank this size, I would definitely hire a structural engineer to come out and just take a look at the floors, and they'll give you an idea if it can hold the weight or not. They know all the techniques and stuff. They'll know what to look for, and if they recommend shoring it up, go by their recommendations of what you need to shore up, where you need to shore it at, to make sure it's going to hold the tank that you want. Now, my advice, and this is my personal advice, the bigger the tank, the lower the floor. So this is the main level of my house. I have an upstairs. I do have a basement, but it's not usable. It's a dirt basement, so it's not usable. So this main floor, I would say I could probably realistically do a 90-gallon tank, and I'd probably be okay. On my upper floor, though, I wouldn't go above 40 gallons. So, just because, again, upper floor is not as solid as your main floor. Your main floor is going to hold all your kitchen utilities and stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit more sturdier. If you've got a usable, livable basement and you use it a lot, you can go probably as big as your imagination and your budget is willing to go. Especially if it's like a cement slab kind of thing. You're probably going to be just fine on that. Probably still wouldn't hurt to have a structural engineer just to come out, just make sure everything's going to be on the up and up if you're going to do some crazy huge tank. So those are probably some of the bigger key points on placement. Now another placement thing that you want to consider is a room that is most occupied. Don't put your tank in like your spare bedroom that you never go in and you never use, or you go in maybe once a week. Put it in an area that you're going to be in. This is something for you to enjoy, you know, to watch the fish swim and interact and do their thing, and you know, for you to relax and actually enjoy the tank. It's also a really good thing, you know, when you have guests come over and they see your tank, you're like, wow, look at that tank, and you get compliments, and people will ask questions about it. You know, high visibility is always a good thing. So if you've got like a man cave or you know, a living room or a family room, maybe even like a dividing thing from between your living room and your dining room, I would not use your kitchen, just because your stove and oven, and there's just too much that could go wrong in a kitchen environment. So I don't recommend a kitchen environment. But I would recommend, you know, definitely a living room or family room, maybe a dividing room or dividing line between a living room and a dining room. Some people have put it in a bedroom. Again, unless you're like in that room like constantly, you're probably just going to go in there and change or go to bed. So you're not going to spend a lot of time in there. Maybe an office, if you spend, you know, if you've got a home office, you know, maybe a tank in the home office. That again, if you're going to spend, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in there a day, absolutely, you know, totally do it. Another thing to consider when placing your tank is ease of access. And what I mean by ease of access is you want to be able to get to all of your equipment that you are going to attach to this tank. So if you need to do maintenance on it, you need to clean it, or replace it, something, you know, decides it's not going to work anymore and you need to replace it, you need to be able to access that stuff so you can do what you need to do to it to get to it. So if it's, you know, back in a corner wall and it's very difficult, you need like a step stool and a ladder or whatever to get to it, is probably not the best location for it. So give yourself some room, you know, bring it off the wall, don't jam the whole thing up against the wall, you know, leave yourself maybe a 5 or 6 inch gap from the back wall to the back side of the tank. That way you got some room to work if you need to. Most likely you're probably not going to need it all the time, but every once in a while you are going to need to get back there and do something to the tank. So give yourself some room. So once you've found the perfect place to put your tank, and you know that it's going to hold, and you've got it all mapped out, the next thing is tank selection. So, like I said, bigger is always better. You want tank stability, but you also want to, you know, if you're on a budget, or you want to stay within a certain dollar amount, you know, don't let the stores where you're going to go to talk you into something that you don't want. My advice for a beginner, and the only reason why I'm saying these tank sizes, and again, this is for freshwater, this is not for saltwater. For freshwater, good beginner tank, a 20 or 30 gallon tank is probably going to be the good starting size. One, because it's going to be pretty inexpensive to get into, so you're not going to spend a whole lot of money to find out, hey, this isn't for me. And you're not tied into a whole huge setup of, you know, a lot of money tied into it. You can get into a 20 or 30 gallon tank for between $100 to $150, which is not that bad, considering. Some setups cost you thousands of dollars. That's one thing about the aquarium hobby. You can spend as little or as much as you want. There is no limit to this hobby. There's always some new equipment coming out, something great, grand, all kinds of bells and whistles. As a beginner, you don't really need that. So you can skip all the high-end stuff. Now, if you find that, hey, this is a hobby that I really want to get into, you can always upgrade your equipment down the road. The tank that you're looking at here was originally a freshwater tank. When I got into the saltwater side of things about 5 years ago, I tore it down, cleaned it out really good, and turned it into a saltwater tank. Let me move this camera just a little bit. So the pump that is, let's see if I can do this, right over there, and the other pump that is right over there. Those two pumps I bought way after I had this thing set up. I had other power heads pushing water around, and I wanted these Vortec MP40s in there, and I saved up to get them. Because at the time when these were out, they were about $500 a piece. So I saved up and bought those separately and got those in the tank. So I've upgraded this tank a little bit at a time. I've pieced it together, so you don't have to get everything all at once if you're on a budget. You can piece the tank together if you need to. However, some of the big box stores have aquarium kits. The kits usually come with your tank, your hood with your light in it, a filter, a heater, maybe a net, possibly some fish food. If you're really lucky, maybe some test strips or some like the chlorinator. Just look at the packaging. Sometimes they'll have the tank set up with all the items inside. They'll have a list of it. They'll give you the base price of all the items, and they'll say, or you can buy this whole kit and save this much and it would be this price. So you can get into a kit and then you can upgrade those pieces as you need to. The pros to getting everything in a kit: you get everything all at once. You're ready to go. Just take everything out, follow the instructions in all the different packaging, and add some water, let it sit, you're good to go. The cons: you may have to upgrade that equipment later on, which would cost you some more money. So you can either piece the tank together and buy the equipment that you want up front, or you can get the kit and upgrade later. The choice is completely up to you. Some things to consider when getting a tank for a beginner. Personally, and again, this is my personal opinion, stay away from the specialty tanks like the hexagonal tanks and the corner tanks and the bow front tanks. To me, it's extra cleaning. The hexagonal tanks to me look absolutely terrible. I dislike them greatly. If you ever get a chance and go to a store that has a hexagonal tank set up, look at the seam where the two pieces of glass come together and look at the fish. You will see like part of the fish higher in the tank and the other half of the fish, the back half of the fish, lower in the tank. So it looks like he's like a Picasso weird Frankenstein fish. I just dislike hexagonal tanks. Get a nice rectangular tank. One big piece of glass in the front. You'll enjoy it much better than a bow front that you gotta clean. And to me, bow fronts make the fish like kind of like sticking a magnifying glass up there. So it distorts the fish to me, and I just don't like it. But if you find a store that has those tanks set up, and who knows, you might like them. If you do, go for it. Typically the hexagonal ones come in like a 40 or a 46 gallon range, 49 gallon range. The bow fronts, I've seen them around the 30 to 50 gallon range. If you're wanting that, totally go for it. I'd stay away from the corner tanks, again, mostly because of the ease of access to the equipment that you're trying to get to. You're going to have probably one or two sides of that back tank stuck up against a wall, and it's going to be difficult to get to some of that equipment. So that is something to consider. But definitely take a look at the tanks. Get your prices, get some ideas. Look at what they have it set up as their display tanks. Don't go to one store. Don't go to two stores. Go to as many different pet stores as you can that has aquariums, because every one of them is going to have a little bit different setup, and you're going to get lots of ideas. Go on websites, look at what people have set up in their aquariums. Get a good idea of what you're looking at, what you want to do. Again, stay within your budget. Don't let the salespeople talk you into a bigger, because again, they're going to be telling you bigger is better, bigger is better. So, if you're looking at that 20 gallon, they're like, well, I got this 40 gallon, I got the 60 gallon, I got the 75 gallon. Stay within your budget. Don't let these guys talk you into something that you don't want to get into. Again, a 20 gallon or 30 gallon is going to be a great starting point. And if you can manage a 20 gallon or 30 gallon, you're going to be able to manage a bigger tank when you're ready to make that jump. And again, if you get a 20 gallon, you have the tank up and running, and you have it for a year, and you decide, you know what, this hobby is not for me. You didn't spend a whole lot of money, maybe $150 tops. You can get rid of that equipment pretty easily, and you're not out a whole lot of money. So yeah, don't let these salespeople, especially if they're like on commission. Most of the time they're not, but if they are on commission, small mom and pop place that might be on commission, don't let them talk you into something that you don't want. So when you're looking at the tanks, start thinking about what do you want to do with the tank. Do you want freshwater? Do you want fish-only saltwater? Do you want a reef tank? Start thinking about what you want to do with the tank. Again, I'm going to talk to you about freshwater side. There's some great videos out there. One in particular series that's going on right now from a company called Bulk Reef Supply. They're doing a saltwater reef setup. They're doing it's like 52 weeks of saltwater, something like that. YouTube, do a search BRS or Bulk Reef Supply. You'll see the videos. If you're interested in the saltwater side or the reef side, definitely look at those videos. They're doing a fantastic series. I've been watching it. They're doing a fantastic thing on that. I don't know what week they're on right now. I think they're upper 30s, might be in the low 40s now, so they're getting close to the end of this series. But they've been going at it for a while. They do a video every week, and they've been doing a good thing. So once you decide what you want in your tank, start asking questions about the animals that you want to keep, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, reef. Start learning about those fish. Buy books, get on the internet, take the internet for what it's worth. Some people are out there just to watch you fail. What's the line in the Dark Knight? Some people just want to watch the world burn. So take some of what's out there in the internet world with a grain of salt. Some people are jackasses, and they want to see you fail. They'll give you bad advice. They'll tell you do this, do that, and you can ruin your tank very quickly. Case in point, the video that I saw on beginner setup, this gentleman was talking about decorations, which I'll go into in a later video. and he said something to the effect, if you're into Matchbox cars, throw a Matchbox car in your tank. Don't throw a Matchbox car in your tank. I'll go over that in the decorations. There's some do's and don'ts. Definitely just don't throw random stuff into your tank. That it will mess your tank up so fast, it's not even funny. So be leery of some of what is being said on YouTube, said on forums. I've even gotten bad advice from my local fish store. You know, I don't know if that's just inexperience on their part, inexperience on my part, and they're taking advantage of that. I don't know. I've had 2 fish stores try and sell me fish that should definitely not belong in my tank. Luckily, I was smart enough to hold off on that purchase, come home, do the research on that animal, and I found out, no, that animal would not do good in my tank. And I avoided a very disastrous, very expensive purchase that could have resulted not only in the death of that animal, but also all the other animals that I currently have in this tank. So I was very smart. You got to be smart about this. You know, people are, they're out to make money. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. Do research before you make that purchase. Do lots of research. That is the best advice that I can absolutely give you. Do as much research as you can before you make that purchase of the animal. Because you can, especially if you don't know the difference between a South American cichlid and a South African cichlid. You mix those two together, you're going to have a war in your tank. And it won't be pretty. So do your research. Absolutely. So that's going to end this first part of my video or series. Probably the next one I'm going to cover will be like lights, filtration, and heaters. What to look for, what your filtration is going to do, what the lights are going to do, stuff like that. What to look for. So if you're new to the fish world, I hope you follow this. Hopefully I can give you some good sound advice and give you the tools you need to when you go to make this purchase and really dive into this, that you do it with confidence and knowledge in what you're needing to do as far as the basic stuff. There's some advanced stuff that you can learn down the road, but as far as basic stuff, you'll have a better grip on it. When I started, I had no idea what I was doing. I was a teenager. I had no clue. All I knew is I put the fish in, put the water in, dechlorinated, and I was off and running. How my fish survived the first 24 hours, I will never know. But they did. So I was very thankful for that. And looking back at it, I really have no idea what I was getting into. But I did get hooked on it, and I did learn a lot about it over the years. And I did work in a pet store for about just under 2 years as the animal caretaker and one of the fish specialists. And I learned a lot in that store. I was able to get customers the tanks that they wanted with the fish that they wanted and got them the right stuff. So with that, this video has gone way longer than I anticipated. For that, I apologize. Again, I will do probably 3, maybe 4 more videos on this beginner aquarium setup. Again, this is going to be for freshwater. If you're interested in saltwater, go check out the BRS video. They've got great information on that. So with that, have a great day. I will see you guys with another Battle Bryopsis video tomorrow sometime, or today, depending on what time it is now. I've lost all track. So I will get this uploaded. It's probably going to be pretty early in the morning, so it'll be later in the day when I get that Battle Bryopsis video going, and we'll go from there. Have a great one. Later.